Beautiful. All right, we will call our facilities committee meeting June 22nd, 2026, 5 p.m. to order. As usual, I will just throw it right over to Mr. Doherty and his team to talk to us on everything facilities.
Well, we have two things for our facilities committee and the board today. The first one is potential educational sales tax projects. I know that's been out there. So we have, I know Mr. Smith, Mr. Souls, Mr. Farrell, and also Ms. Beignet. They worked very hard in looking at our 2020 facility study and also our roofing study that we've had done. And they have put together kind of a master project list that, really it would take us quite a few years to get done if we did not have any sales tax possibility. I think there's I think Jeff, we were just talking, I think over $250 million worth of projects that we've identified for this project list. And so I'll kind of kick it off with Jeff, kind of get a little more details what that list is. And I'll let him talk a little bit about the facility assessment.
So yeah, just a little background. It's not like we decided the legislation passes and we're like, oh, we got to quickly put together a list. We've got plenty of documentation on things that the district that we need in our facilities. So I brought these two binders. So you can see like this first one is like your facility assessment binder. This is your roofing assessment. So I would say that the roofing assessment is very detailed and this takes care of all of our roofing. The facility assessment problem is kind of like a high level overview of what we need to do. It can definitely be increased upon and improved upon. But you can see like, just these two binders here alone, we're probably looking at $300 to $400 million worth of things that the facilities need. So currently with our 8% funding, it's a cycle that by the time we get through doing everything we have to do, we're already going to be behind again because it's going to take so long to get through $300 to $400 million worth of renovations and upgrades while realizing that everything we don't have in these binders is going to start aging. It's going to continue to age. So most of the roofs that we're replacing currently are grade F. Obviously, they were grade F in 2020. We're in 2026 now. So those are the grade Ds are now Fs. And so we haven't touched a grade D roof yet. So the influx of money would allow us to, kind of tackle these in a little bit more assertive fashion, I'd say. So we could actually make up some ground, hopefully. Both studies were done in 2020, so they're about 6 years old at this point. And we have been slowly trying to chip away at some things that are the most pressing with our 8% funds, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to what we actually have that needs to be done.
Well, and just to talk a little bit about this is, when you're looking at the project list for the penny sales tax, it all depends. And we do not know what the split is going to be. It is supposed to be between DD4 and also DD2. We do not know that split. We also do not know the number of years. County council will determine that. So putting together this project list, we have a pretty extensive list that we put together, but the number of facilities will be able to, and the scope and the depth be determined on the split. So if it's a 70-30 split, we may only be able to do 2 roofs on a building or a couple HVACs compared to if it was an 85-15 split or more, we could do more projects and more depth and scope. So the list has been created to be able to be adaptable to whatever split we're able to get from the county. So the county we are supposed to give a project list to the county this week after our meeting tonight. We pass a resolution. And then that list will go to the county and then they will vote on what that split will be and then what they'll vote on the number of years. And so I know Jeff has talked a little bit about this and we can kind of go through the projects, but just wanted to understand the kind of process that we have to do. We also then have to present to county council on July 6th, our project list once it's submitted tonight with this resolution. And so, I'm really thankful for Tony and Jeff being able to look at these projects and really address a lot of our needs just to get kind of caught up. As he said, these are roofs that were Fs back in 2020 and we still have not caught up. So we believe that this will help us get caught up with this educational sales tax.
So another thing is, so we have, like I mentioned, we have quite a few products and systems that are addressed in these two assessments. You've got the roofing and you've got the facility assessments, but up on the board, if you look at the presentation, these are all basically the 8 categories that you need to look at with a good facility assessment and especially tailoring it to education. If you go to the right side column, over to the right column, most of these things that are from 5 down are not really addressed in these existing studies, but that's things like not necessarily the building functioning, but is it functioning for adequately for educational, the programs that are in that space. So that would be like, are our science labs up to date? Are they, if you go to like kindergarten classrooms and, early elementary classrooms, are there built-in cabinetry where they have their sinks and things like that? How are they doing? I know like we're doing some work at Newington and Flowertown right now, and those things are original to 1976. So, those are things that have not been upgraded, and it's kind of like your home. If you had a new kitchen redone, would you leave the existing countertops and cabinets in place? Probably not. You'd probably change that at the same time. So things that are not necessarily addressed here that we still need to address. This doesn't address paving or parking lots and things like that, but so we've tried to add that to our list to incorporate all that stuff in there that needs to be accomplished.
And if you look at this list, you can still see student safety. That was addressed in the other referendum, the 2024 referendum. So when you look at student safety, you're talking about vestibules, film, cameras, fob, how to get in, key entry. So those have been addressed. At number 7, we've done a lot of dollars there. And so I know with what.
But like anything, I mean, we did address that, but it's like,
Comes out there.
Eventually your fencing does, things happen to fencing. It ages out, it wears out. A lot of the fencing we have is galvanized and it's not supposed to rust, but it does receive damage. And over time, things get climate. And so there is a life cycle of fencing as well. It's not, you just put it up one time and it's done. So a lot of these things are, coming back around. Like we don't have a stormwater program in place. Most of our stormwater drains have never been cleaned out or pumped out. So that's something that we need to get into a rotation on, of doing stormwater maintenance, in advance instead of, school flooding. Or why? It's because the pipe, 16-inch pipe has only got about 3 inches of travel space of water because it's been let go for so long and the sediment's just built up in there. So, some things like that we need to address as well. And we will take the current list and keep adding to it. I mean, because we can definitely, there's a lot of stuff we need to add to it, I think, as well. This is just a rough show of the list that we've created so far. I kind of listed it by school and then kind of did the needs and kind of did it based on priority of sort of larger scale needs. Obviously, there's a ton of little things that we can add into here as well to incorporate. When I did this was kind of thinking towards the sales tax portion, and then the remaining stuff is kind of going into the 8%. But I know Mr. Lee eventually wants to see the whole combined list at some point, so we can do that as well.
And go ahead, Mr.
I'll let you guys finish that.
And so when you're talking about the projects, what did we land on after looking at all these items? One is design, construct, equip a new middle school in the area of the Delmar Highway area. We're in the process of purchasing that 50 acres that's off Delmar Highway. So we're hoping to have that. That's one thing that we're excited about because we'll actually have the land before we actually have the money to build the school. So we're in control of our own destiny there. The second item on there, design, renovate, construct, and equip Somerville High School, including academic, fine arts, outdoor athletic facilities, and CTE programs. Somerville High School is about 50 years old in some of those areas. It needs a lot of renovation in some of those areas. You're talking about science labs, you're talking about the auditorium, you're talking about CTE areas. And so they need a lot of area there to be renovated. Same thing with Fort Dorchester High School. It was built in the 1980s. And it's at the point where you're going to need to do some renovations there. Same thing, looking at your academic, fine arts, outdoor athletic facilities, CTE programs. And then same thing with Ashley Ridge, and looking at trying to continue to upgrade theirs as well. We did upgrade some areas out there with their fine arts band room and their with their weight room facility. But again, there's some areas that still need to be addressed out there. The other one is design, renovate, and equip Austin Middle School. They have a lot of electrical and gearing areas that need to be replaced for electrical equipment. And so there's some things that need to be done. That's one of our oldest schools too in the district as well.
The funny thing is, if you look at our assessment, the actual recommendation for Austin was to tear down and start over. There's no real logistical place to move those students. So, I mean, that's not really an option for them. Most of your newer schools, you'll have 1 or 2 dedicated, maybe 3 dedicated circuits of electricity per classroom. They've got 1 circuit for like 4 to 6 classrooms. So, the ability to use technology in that school is very challenging compared to a newer building.
Yeah, and continue to come in on add more information there, Jeff. And so the other one is design, renovate, construct, equip, and expand DuBose Middle School. Right now, we still have some classes and trailers out there. Our goal is to get rid of those learning cottages or those trailers, and then also do some renovations at DuBose. Design, renovate, and equip Gregg Middle School. We have put some money into Gregg Middle School, but it also needs some more attention to some of the needs over there. And then we put on there replacing and repairing roofs at multiple school facilities, and we have that documented, and then replacing and installing HVAC equipment, furniture at multiple facilities. Other items are replacing school district buses, including special education, general education, and school activity buses. Renovate, construct, and equip playgrounds at multiple school facilities, and then renovate flooring and lighting at multiple school facilities. And so, again, we can hit all of these projects, but the depth and scope will be determined on the split and the years. And so we really tried to make sure it would fit any of those, the splits in the years. We don't know what will happen with the county. We just know that we have to provide this project list, and it has to fit in kind of those parameters. So Jeff, Kenny, Tony, anything else to add, Tony, to any of this?
Jeff hit everything. I think the stormwater, that's one of those things where it's easy to neglect that, but every time we dig a stormwater retention pond, we have to submit, and it's recorded in the register of deeds, a maintenance agreement with the county and or the town or whoever's MS4 that we agree with on that, whoever has jurisdiction. But a lot of those maintenance agreements, we need to find those. They're ones that are recorded, and we really need to get on the retention ponds and the whole stormwater system. We're not supposed to have alligators in our ponds, and so sometimes that happens. And that's that's going to take a lot of money just to storm. That's going to take a lot of money just for roofing. Right? We just did 100,000 square feet of roof with the Ashley Ridge project. We did 100,000 square feet of roofing out there. That was $2 million in that scheduled value. So using that as a 2026 gauge for 100,000 square feet, and we've got 3.5 million square feet, and a lot of that is in need of new roofs. Using those large scale gauges like that.
Well, the other thing too is like, so they did some exterior envelope, which is kind of your sealing up and pointing mortar, fixing things like that, addressing some things. But I mean, Mr. Northrup mentioned about Somerville High School, the original building, those windows are all from the late 1969. So they obviously are not very efficient for heating and cooling.
I think the HVAC 1990 Desert Storm.
Yeah, 1995 was
They don't make them anymore either, so we're having to hang on with that. So
What would that initial, the 8, I guess, high level pieces that you were looking at earlier, is that from the study or is that something?
That's just something I put together. And that's just basically what you should look at from a.
Colin, can you pull that back, those 8? Thank you.
So
It's
those are your best practices.
That's
Try
just
and
the
focus on
basic
this.
areas that you should be focused on when you're looking at a facility, especially tailored towards an educational facility. And a lot of that stuff we've been looking at, but I mean, I'm sure technology would mention really quickly about the educational adequacy as far as the Wi-Fi coverage to our campuses. I mean, I know they've done some stuff at Ashley Ridge, but Ashley Ridge is still like a box as far as IT goes.
So just to confirm a couple of things. So these two binders, the facility assessment, that's relatively current because you've been tracking and adding to that as things went along. The roofing, on the other hand, has not effectively been updated since 2020.
Neither one is 20, both of them are 2020. We've been working off of these to do renovations and correct issues that were brought up in these both assessments.
So you're working on things that were identified in 2020, but they have not been updated with things identified since 2020,
Correct.
5 years later.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I understand you correctly, the original recommendation, Alston Middle, was that right?
Original recommendation was a tear down and rebuild.
Now we've done a lot inside
Yeah,
also
yeah.
on the outside.
And the reason they say that's not because there's something wrong with Austin, like as far as currently, it's just that the cost to upgrade it to current standards exceeds, what the cost would be to rebuild. And, you run into that sometimes. We had the same issue at Span, to do all of these things that we would need to do for students at Span, as a full school, it would take a tremendous amount of money and almost more so than it's worth to do it. But for instance, you could look, Ashley Ridge, Mr. Souls just did section 5, and that was rated an F in 2020. But section 1 is graded a D. And so that was in 2020. So it's an F by now. So it's,
Does it get any worse than an F?
no.
That's it.
Yeah, the one at the D is.
And
gonna
just
get an
basically,
F.
all you're doing at that point is.
The F is like,
Yeah,
We have a grading floor.
Silent.
That's just the grade.
I know it's not good.
We have A's in the league too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's just them going up, looking at the age, but we still have A, B's, C's that still
Have
leak.
issues.
So then, a B might jump in because, we're having multiple.
Active problem.
Exactly. So,
Cute.
exactly.
And the other thing we're
Knock on
looking at,
wood, no storms.
when you look at the roof, you look at the life of the roof, you're probably looking at, if you went with a metal roof, I know Tony would say that, you might pay a little bit more, but when you're looking at the lifespan of that roof, it's gonna be a lot.
So,
And there's only a few campuses that would actually be able to use a metal.
Oak Brook, DuBose.
Middle, DuBose, middle. So.
Well, it's interesting because we were talking about, Oak Brook when we were out there. And I mean, that's plus what? I mean, it's 30 years that those have been up there.
I believe they're pre-Hugo. So I believe they're original 80,
And
86.
no major issues. And those are shingle proof. So
I wouldn't say major issues, but I would say they're
They are not without issues.
they're at the end of their life cycle, I would say, for sure. Now, that's because another question, because, a metal roof at Oak Brook, I did have a rough estimate put together for the two schools, elementary and middle would be about $5.5 million. Now, you could do a shingle roof for probably $2.5 to $3 million. You'll get less warranty on a shingle roof. You'll obviously get a little longer life out of a metal, but is it worth it now to do that? I don't know. There's both ways you can look at it. Spend it now and hopefully get a few more years out of it, or you can spend less now and get it for, if we had the same luck as we've had currently, we'd get close to 40 years out of it. So, right at 40 years.
And if I understood correctly, you didn't look through the lens of all 8 of these categories to develop this project list.
We used what we had as far as the assessments that were done by, one was done by MPS and one was done by,
And I appreciate what you guys have put together. I know you're trying to operate within the timeline of all these things going on and the different asks from people. When I step back and I look at this, I mean, $213 million worth of identified capital plans, okay? Don't know what the exact planning horizon that includes. Is that a 10-year period? But what I'm hearing is, but this isn't all of it. Okay, I heard you throw out a number, $300-400 million. I'm assuming that's gonna probably encompass a lot of deferred maintenance, ignored maintenance. I would ask, are the alligators now part of the FFA program? Have we incorporated those?
They're
But-
actually, we actually have depredation tag.
Yeah.
So we call somebody on the list, not,
Yeah.
the name of that list is, but they come and, they remove them for us.
Yes, so notwithstanding stormwater maintenance and everything else, we've got that safety and so forth that goes with that. So, I hear those kind of numbers and I'm still sensing, as I have for the last 2 years, of trying to get a little bit better understanding of all this. There's, $600-700 million worth of capital needs that, you don't want to do them all today. You still have some things that, are still within their lifespan and whatnot, but we have to consider ongoing maintenance. You have to consider real wear and tear. And you take into consideration the preventative maintenance, such as, and I don't know what kind of a legal liability does that raise. We have agreements that we're supposed to be maintaining these things with the county. And if we haven't, what is that? What issues does that raise? You know what I'm saying? So this is great. I see the list that you put it up there before. $213 million worth of identified needs. Regardless whether county council comes up with a split of 99-1, 50-50, don't care. Over whatever period of time they're contemplating, what's the annual anticipated revenue from doing something like this? Because our needs are what our needs are. And that's the point I want to get across here in the facilities meeting. Look, we've got $600 to $750 million worth of needs. They're not here tomorrow. Some of them are, but they're also not going to go away.
Wasn't the annual revenue estimate, didn't we have that? Like,
Yeah, and I
we
think-
had a breakdown of that with based on year and split and,
Right.
so I think that's really dependent on the years split, right,
Exactly.
obviously.
Yep.
I mean, the number in my head was 36 million a year. Just
36.
to use a ballpark
Average,
number.
Yeah,
36 to 45. So it would grow. It's what they're anticipating. So in 20.
So I mean, you're 10 years.
But not
into
for
it.
us. I mean,
What is
that's
that
the full,
split?
that's the
The
full
total.
calculation.
okay, that's the full,
So
okay.
full calculation, in 2028 is 34 million, 2036 is 47 million.
So even if you're at 30 million, we use 85-15,
Yeah.
you're still 10 years to do all of this. But in that 10 years, you still have wear and tear, you still have maintenance, it continues.
So kick it in.
And we still do get our 8% dollars too. And then the other piece is, do you bond the money out? Or do you just pay the projects as you go? Because, that's something that we'll need to consider. And obviously, if we're going to go for construct a new middle school in the area of the Delmar Highway, you probably have to bond that project out and then pay as you go with the other ones. That allows you to have more capacity and to get more projects done. So do you want to talk about
I
that?
did
Tina?
want to bring that piece up because Christy and I just spoke with Franny, our bond counsel, to include that language in the resolution. So that's a new section right after the project list that states that the school district requests that county council adopt its approving resolution authorizing that all revenue received from the sales and use tax will be used to pay the cost of education capital improvement projects described above and to pay debt service on general obligation bonds, if any, issued by Dorchester School District 2 to fund the education capital improvement projects described above. So if we were able to get bonds for, like, say, just the middle school, and then we could do that, it would be not the full amount, or else we would have to go back out for another question to ask for the public to say we could bond out the entire amount, which speaking with our financial advisor, we wouldn't need to do that. So
We
would be
don't need
okay.
a second question
Right.
if we do it that way.
Yes. The other piece of that is in the resolution, we know that the county is in charge of what the split is and the length of time, but we did also state in here that the school district is requesting for 10 years. We didn't put a split, we did put the number of years.
Why did we do that? Cause I mean, couldn't it be up to 15 years? So
It
why
could be
did,
up to 15 years.
why would we lock ourselves in?
We haven't really locked ourselves in. We just did our resolution that we'll give the county. The county will still determine. We just need to have the project list. This was done by our bond counsel. And so she put this together for us.
Just didn't know why we included the 10-year, why, just, it's not required to include the split or the 10 years, right?
Correct.
Why include one and not the other is what
It's
I'm
not
asking.
required. I mean, that would be at the board's discretion. If the board chose not to include the number of years or to change the number of years to be 15, then that could certainly happen in the passing of the resolution. There could just be an amendment to change that if that's the will of the board.
But it's not required to have either the split or the.
Correct.
The max is 15.
Yes, I just figured like if we don't have control over the split, hence why that's the county's decision. We don't have control over the years either. I just don't know how we would include one, not the other. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Resolution.
And we can make that change. That's not a problem.
Just I was curious, the
You'll-
reasoning.
Yeah, and I think the only, I just remember when we did the local option sales tax for the roads. That was a pretty big sticking point with, I think they did 5 years.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't want it below. So if anything, I would say a minimum like in the resolution or something like that, you know what I mean? I just don't wanna, I wouldn't be opposed to 15 years, so you know what I mean?
They want to do 15.
Yep.
Speaking solely as the trustee from District 7, okay? One of the biggest concerns I have is sustainability, okay? And so we're already going into this saying, even if they did 15 years, it's not enough to cover what we put on the project list, really, let alone all the things that aren't on the project list, because we haven't really developed that list of stuff that amounts to somewhere in the neighborhood of $600 to $750 million. So stipulating to county council that we only want 10, when it's not in our purview anyway, I mean, we can ask, but whatever. It doesn't solve the problem. And that's the concern I have. You know, one of the things that this district hasn't done a great job of is maintaining what we have. That's why we have this big deficit in preventative maintenance. And it's not to throw stones and whatnot. You guys have done a great job with what little you have to do what you've done. But how do we stop going down this path? The end result, even if the council decides to go 10 years, okay, and that turns out to be X amount of dollars, well, what happens when we need more? We're right back at the voters again. We haven't proposed anything that is sustainable. You know, I would be in support of something like this if all the other debt was gone and everything, and this became hey, we now have a sustainable source of capital funding, and every year I know what to plan for.
I guess my question then is like, what's the alternative? Like, I feel like just speaking kind of as me individually and off the cuff here, I think you have a duty and an obligation to do with like what's within your power. And I feel like, well, what I agree with what you're saying, like you don't want to kick the can down the road and 10, 15 years, you're still have the deferred maintenance, you're still not be able to do that. But at the end of the day, if we don't do this 10 years down the road, we're going to be in a far worse position than we are now. So I think like two things can be true at the same time. We can need to pursue this as a district and have to have that like advocacy as that aspect, but still continue to push towards other solutions, like with the legislative delegation, and let them know upfront, like this will get us some of that deferred maintenance, some of that stuff, but and chip away at that $600 million, but it's not the magic bullet. And I think like to your point, a lot of people think it is. And I think that is a thing to worry about is, are people gonna see this and then be like, oh, well, we just gave you that referendum and then we just gave you that penny. I think people need to understand the reality of the situation we're in, but we still have, in my opinion, an obligation to do what we can. Cause I'd hate to see not having this where we are in 10 years. I don't know, you know, like that's.
And you have 26 buildings and there you're gonna have costs, like you said, sustainability. You know, your 8% funding is supposed to cover some of your items, but we're so far behind is what you said. It's nobody's fault. It's just, this is where we're at. And if you can get kind of caught up with this, your 8% dollars can help a little bit address some of those things. So your 8% dollars, what do we get, Tina, on that, basically, roughly?
About 22 million.
And we just started getting that, correct?
Yes, I mean.
And how many years?
Because of the assessed values have gone up so much and the growth of the assessments over the past maybe 5 years, because we still only get $4 million.
I just wonder if that would get us caught up enough to start to pursue more preventative maintenance and move in the right direction rather than not. I just know if we don't address something or have some sort of solution, I worry. And that $600 million we're talking about already as is, where would we be 10 years from now?
It's at 22 million a
Well,
year.
The preventative maintenance piece comes to another, I mean, that's a whole nother ball of wax, so to speak, because you need staff to do preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
To have a good preventative maintenance program, you need about, each maintenance person should be allocated to roughly 45 to 50,000 square feet. We're at about 108,000 square feet per maintenance person. So we're not in a position where we can do a lot of PM work. We try to do some, and we do it on certain systems that we have to do it on because it's just not conducive, like, boilers and things like that. And, air conditioning units, we do our PM. And I think it's a testament that we do that because we do have some units that are 40 years old. And keeping those units alive is because of our techs. But a lot of the PM stuff that we could be doing, we just don't have
So all of that in-house.
all in-house.
So, I mean, I guess a little bit part parcel, my question around 10-year question. The way this is structured, so it's fairly specific, like to these projects. I just don't want us to run into a potential issue like we already did with our latest referendum, where it's like, oh, well, now we need to pivot. Either we finish this or something has changed and now we need to do this. Does this leave us enough room without asking again? Because now we're going to two places, right? We have to go to county council, tell them what we're doing. And then we have to go to, I guess, the voters to tell them what we're doing. So how do you even backtrack that if there are issues?
Well, I think the big thing is, when you look at that list, we went through there, and that's why a couple of these questions, when you look at it, renovate, flooring and lighting at multiple school facilities, you can identify probably 6 schools there. And depending on the years and split, I may be able to only do 2 of those rather than all 6. So that the scope and depth will be determined by that. So we try to leave ourselves enough room, like with Gregg Middle School. I know they're on that list, and maybe we're only allowed to do a couple things at Gregg, not everything, when we're looking at everything, because it says design, renovate, and equip Gregg Middle School. So I think when you look at Gregg Middle School, I think there was, quite a bit of millions of dollars to put into that. So maybe we don't touch everything because we have to touch some of everything on this list. And then you take your 8% dollars and you couple that with some of these projects, you're able to get some of the other ones done. Just like with the school buses that we put on there, if you're able to get the number of buses we think, then we get on a bus replacement plan, and we start every year, we start replacing 5 to 6 or 7 buses a year. So you're always constantly caught up. So you don't have a number like, I want to say we had 39. I think it's going to be 12 years old. Usually that's the life of a bus. And so like going back to what you're talking about, that sustainability is now you have that plan. I think before it's nobody's fault. Like Tina said, we didn't have that 8% money until 2023.
The last time we bought a big bunch of buses was on a 15-year occupation lease. So we have some that are reaching the end of that, but we have over the past couple of years put it in our 8% to replace buses. So we're trying to slowly move those items in there since we were able to realize some additional 8% funding. So.
Yeah, it just gets, and this is on me, and I apologize. I don't know, have we looked at other districts, I guess, resolutions for their tax for this exact same
Yes.
thing? And is this the way they laid it out?
Yes.
Specific projects?
We looked at Charleston, we looked at Berkeley, and we sat down and
I
looked at
think we're a
those.
little unique too with how you had to lay it out, just because of the fact that we don't know the percentage or the years.
Correct.
So like we had to give ourselves, well, if it's 15 years and, 80% versus 15 years and 90%, or, 10 years and whatever.
Tried to be specific, and transparent, while leaving ourselves enough space to be
So,
flexible and adaptable
yeah.
too, because
Because
there's
you're,
a lot of factors.
That are so outside of our control.
You're talking a long time period, like you were saying, where things can change, prices go up, things again that we can't control,
So maybe like you were saying, the 80% or whatever could get us more for a specific school.
Yeah,
Versus if we ended up with the 70%, we'll just do a little bit of the
Correct.
identified issues at that school. So it's generic enough that it captures the needs of that school without necessarily line by line items.
and going back to Mr. Lee's point, we have about 600 million or 400, $600 million, but we've identified the biggest projects, taking care of the envelope, as Jeff would say, your roofs, those are the biggest things. Your HVAC are huge. Those are 2 big items when you're looking at the envelope. So we try to encompass those inside of these projects. And I'll give you an example, and, Tina, correct me if I'm wrong. So if you're looking at, a 70-30 split over 10 years, we're looking at $262 million, I believe. Over that 10 years for a 70-30 split. And then you're looking at $318 million over an 85-15 split over 10 years. So that's significant millions of dollars, more projects you're able to pick off that list. And so we're kind of, I wouldn't say held hostage, because we just don't know, or the county's in charge of that split, also the number of years. So we try to look at, encompass the number of projects by looking what Jeff had here in that list he was able to put together And then also you have that 8% funds that we get too as well. So,
So that would be the total amount, but, part of the law or part of the resolution.
10%.
10% of the proceeds will go towards debt relief too. So the 318 would actually be 286.
So, Mr. Lee, going back to what you're saying, is your concern, I mean, because I agree, I don't think this is going to take care of all of our needs. However, I do think we have all always said that there isn't going to be a single solution anyway. So I guess, is your concern just if we move forward with this, that obviously, since we don't have a lot of control over our funding situation, that we will hear that now we don't need any other solutions? Is that the biggest concern you have? Just that people are going to say this is an answer as opposed to a part of a solution?
I am fearful of collective amnesia for long-term projects, and but the fact of the matter is, does anybody think that our needs are going to go down? So if county council says 5 years, whatever the split is, okay, our needs are still what our needs are, okay? And yes, I agree, we have to be realists and we have to cooperate and do all that other fun stuff, okay? But at the end of the day, okay, the math has to math. And so I don't want to come back to the voters, to the people of DD2 and say, hey, thanks so much for that 5-year sales tax and whatnot. And that was great, but we have these other needs. Well, where were you 5 years ago? I want to make sure we tell them, this is what it's going to cover. This is what we're going to try and do with what we have. This is what's not covered. That's still out there.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And so part of it's messaging and
Yes,
whatnot.
that
But
makes sense.
for me, the underlying concern is I am absolutely positively against any form of taxation. I'm also a realist and understand there's only a certain number of ways that you can raise money. And going into this, I said early on, I'd be supportive if we came up with something sustainable that we could go forward with. Now, 8% funds, currently valuation $22 million that we can start programming for capital expenditure, preventative maintenance, whatever. The better we get at our own internal capital planning, great. But we are so far beyond. And we do have some explicit capital needs that we've identified here in this list that is going to, in my view, probably cover the maximum of anything that they can get out of this tax increase. And so I'm concerned with that. I want people to understand what it is they're signing up for. And we saw the example of one of them down in Beaufort, where they went back 3 times. Voters said, not no, but heck no, don't trust it.
We
Okay,
do have it now, though.
have it now.
They finally passed it.
they did, but
And
you
like
look at
Charleston
all
and
that they
Berkeley,
did.
they've continued it, so they have gone back to the voters and
And
continued.
asked to continue it. And I mean, I
But I
think
think you're right, the messaging is critical because that's a very important piece of
I
this.
agree. I think we have to be honest about what this does and doesn't do. But at the same time, like I share your sentiments about taxation and all of the above, but I also realize, our limitations, what we can do, and apart from the legislative delegation coming up with some magical solution or another referendum in addition to the penny and impact fees and approaching it like in a multifaceted approach. I just don't know what other options there are. So like, if there's something like I'm missing or some like magic bullet out there that exists without dealing with it through a penny, impact fees, referendums, leveraging our debt in a responsible way, the most responsible way we possibly can. I just don't know. I'm like, just thinking out loud, like what other options are there? Because I mean, ideally in a perfect world, I would love the delegation to come back and just say, hey, you know what? We realize this disproportionate funding is affecting you so poorly and we're going to fix it and make sure that you have adequate funding to do all your deferred maintenance and build all your new schools. But I just don't have that magic wand I wish I had. So
I believe Charleston's in the same situation.
I don't know.
I think they're going for phase 6 of their capital sales tax. And so they basically got rid of their deferred maintenance by rebuilding every school in the district. I think since 2000, they've basically rebuilt
Gosh, that's
every school in their district.
Exactly how they
They
did it.
started off West Ashley High School, and I think from there, they basically rebuilt every single thing they have. and added more on top of it.
And then
So-
just continued on preventative maintenance.
And now
for
their,
that
well,
plan.
now their sales
Yeah,
tax is
okay.
being used for, the bulk of it's going towards PM.
Yeah.
So
And it was
maybe
interesting because thinking of the marketing to let everybody know what our total project costs are. So when we're looking at Charleston, they had about $1 billion worth of projects. And they had said that they would be able to, if they were to get this, continue with the sales tax, it would cover like 600 million. They would still have 400 million that they couldn't fund.
Yeah.
So they did show all of them with that note under there that these are unfunded, so.
I was like, where do you get that?
Think
Where it's
that's a bad idea
publicly,
at all.
I mean, I'm 100% for it. I just, public consumption of that information, all of a sudden you're gonna hear the voters or people say, well, where did you say this? You know, we could put it out in parents, where we can put it on our website, we can say it in a board meeting, we can say it in facilities meeting, but you know, I don't know, I'm also open to recommendations to make sure people understand that. Because I feel like we've had many conversations about many different things, so we're blue in the face. And then you still have those people who are like, I had no idea, so I just, you know.
On
I
our
think
website, we could set up like the other counties have, the education sales tax, what is paid
What it
for,
covers,
and
what we still
projects and
need.
what we still
Yeah.
need. Do some good marketing.
It goes back to phase, like you said, you just phase it. This is phase one.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Be honest.
it hits, like Mr. Lee said, this hits 200 and some million dollars of our projects, and you still have this many left.
And I mean, I think the positive side of it is when I think historically, right, we've never even been in a place where we can have a so-called full blown out plan. Because to this point, when you're getting $4 million you can allocate towards capital, it's laughable. Now we're actually getting to a place where we have the 8% funds coming in. If we talk about this, you know, you're talking actual significant capital we can put towards a plan that we can actually take care of. That's a very different story. I will tell you, and just since I would say since 2023, I've done facilities and it is noticeably
Yeah.
better every single year. When I first started in our district, no offense to our district, I love our district, but I would walk through some of our facilities and be like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do because you have no money. I mean, legitimately no money. And now I think we actually have an opportunity to say, hey, now we have this availability. We can turn this around. We are turning it around.
Yeah.
Let's continue to make that
And
better.
this allows us, I think, to do it more and kind of to the point where our needs don't go away. But if we're able to make a huge like chip at that 600,000 or $600 million worth of maintenance, like that's a huge thing and does free up that 8% money to continue and maybe move forward and catch up, in my opinion. Like, yes, it doesn't change the needs, but we go from $600 million in needs to maybe significantly less. I don't know what depends on what we get, but you know what I mean?
And the one thing I would say is, you know, the facilities group gets together on every Monday, and with the referendum dollars and 8%, they work together with the 8% dollars and the referendum to address all of these needs. And so that has been neat to see. Tony and Kenny and Tina and Ashley Cash, they all meet, and and Rhonda Grice as well, and they all meet and they go over that and they make sure what project is coming out of what bucket, Jeff as well. And so that has been neat to see and how they're able to track all of that. And because there's a lot of money going back and forth, but they know what project is. It's a lot to manage, and they've done a really good job of trying to manage both that.
Well, we're not even stepping into the role of like, if we wanted to do and truly do like some of these things that are required, like say we wanted to tear down and rebuild Austin. So there's a lot of things you have to do to get that in order. And we did it in Charleston a lot when I was there. When we built Butte Academy, we moved the entire Butte Academy program to the old Wando campus because it was sitting vacant. So we had to bus students or transport them from downtown or wherever they were located to Wando. So we don't have any facilities that we
Yeah.
can just have as a swing space. So we either look at building one by building like a trailer park somewhere to have a school temporarily located while you tear down and rebuild, or what are your options? I mean,
You like would have to merge them into existing.
I mean, I know
schools, you
for sure Ladson Elementary, they just finished working on that. They paid like $8 million just to get temporary classrooms set up before they could even start building their
Plus
new
them
school.
to
So,
our.
I mean, it's a lot of things that come into play when you try to start rebuilding your buildings, and because we don't have anything that you can just move them into temporarily.
Probably had to put them in some of our, like our North Charleston schools that are under capacity and do a weird busing situation and split kids up and.
Well, that kind of creativity and thinking gives me confidence that we'll manage to work our way through whatever this turns out to
Yes.
be. But I just want to make sure we go in
Yep.
eyes wide open and make sure that everyone else understands that whatever ends up happening, should a 1% capital, education capital sales tax go into effect, what that revenue will do, what it won't do, what we may have to do with it, whether we have to bond some of it out because of larger projects that can't wait for the revenue to come in. Coupled with what we're doing with the 8% money, which, you know, all things being equal, if we didn't have any deficit in capital needs, and we could count on $22 million a year to take care of preventative maintenance and small projects and stuff like that, you know, that might be closer to sustainable. It may not.
If you could take say we have a check and we have unlimited capacity to do work, we could get everything caught up this year. Going forward, you could maintain with $20 million a year and whatnot.
Yeah.
Now, if we're doing it the way we're gonna have to do it with the sales tax, by the time we get to year 10, the things we did in year 1 are not gonna be helpful. You're not, it's like the old adage of an old refrigerator, you know, back when they were built in the 50s, they last for 100 years. Now they last for 3.5, 4 years. So, you know, same thing holds true with air conditioning systems. They have so much into them now as far as fresh air requirements and all the different requirements they have in there. They just don't last like ones we had 30, 40 years ago lasted.
And we did have one more item on the agenda, so any other questions?
So just a little update. I think this is kind of just a quick rendering. We're going to talk about the Fort Rochester High School strength training classroom. Back in December, November, we pre-qualified 3 vendors. So we have finalized the construction documents and those pricing has come back for those. So we have a vendor that's going to be proposed tonight. I think
I was ready to say, don't say the amount.
No. I was just saying, I think we have a vendor that's going to be proposed tonight to do that project. And this is just a rough layout of where it's going to be. It's going to give them approximately 5,000 square foot strength training classroom. Then we'll allocate the existing locations for, I think it's going to end up being fine arts classrooms.
That's what I thought. Okay.
It's right next to the art classrooms, right?
Is that where the?
So if you look at the map, all of your bays are right at the top. On the left, the top left is those construction classrooms and the engineering. And so the bottom area underneath that new area is where like
Is this just adding, or are we getting new classroom space in addition to it?
We're building a building, Jake, connecting it to.
So like the current facilities that house weight training, will those be converted into classroom space?
Yes.
Okay.
These have roll-up garage doors.
Only.
Tony can give you a scientific lesson on that,
We could do some calculations on heat gain.
especially in the south with 100% humidity.
But
Not
to
good.
prove tonight, I think the contractor's
pretty.
timeline says late spring, next year will be completion timeline, so.
Perfect. So that's in our packet tonight.
Yes.
So
It's uploaded to your packet, confidential vendor and amount for y'all to vote on tonight if you would.
perfect. Anything else from the district? Questions from committee members? Very good. Public comments? From the public. No public. No boss. So with that, we will close out our facilities meeting. We'll see everybody in a few minutes for our board meeting. Thank you.